Happy New Year, everybody. Hope you had a good one. I certainly did. It's been great, actually. The weather has been biblical, as you probably know. But everyone around here says it's the wettest they've ever known it. So, well, it might be a sign of things to come. But anyway, the garden has survived. And a few things have popped into flower, and it's always nice to celebrate them when they do. So, here we have a gorgeous winter flowering viburnum. I think this is Bodnum Tensi Dawn. It's got quite a few flowers on it, but they're generally right up there, sort of about 3 or 4 meters high. Beautiful scent. I mean, absolutely gorgeous, sweet fragrance that cuts through the winter air. I do love it. But I have to, well, I'm thinking of doing some regenerative pruning to get the flowers down to sort of nose height where you want them, really. Yeah, lovely day, lovely still day. Still squelchy underfoot, as you can probably hear. But there's also some other things that have come into flower. And I do love winter flowering plants because, you know, at this time of year, you need as much joy in your life as possible. Um, and here we have a winter flowering clematis. Again, a pretty delicate one. This is Serosa, winter flowering Serosa there, and some more flowers down here. Lovely little bell-shaped flowers, and you can look up into them from here. It's an evergreen climber, not hugely dramatic, but still comes out in January. And then over here, we've got this beautiful witch hazel, Hamamelis pallida. Look at the flowers on this, really unusual spidery flowers. It's meant to be scented, but I'll be honest with you, can't get a whiff of it at all. I've never ever smelt it properly. Only if you breathe on the flowers it releases the fragrance, but tried that and absolutely nothing. Anyway, it's lovely to enjoy the garden and get out into it, but now's the time really that I've got to start thinking about the design, the layout, and how to move it forward. Okay, here goes. So this is the exciting bit. This is where the big ideas start coming together. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty, and I think a lot of people when they design gardens start thinking, "Oh, what am I going to do in that corner? What am I going to do over there? What plants am I going to grow?" And this is more how the spaces are going to work together, how they're going to flow, the practicalities. Having lived in this garden, well, around the garden for a couple of months, I'm getting to know which bits work well, which bits don't, where I want to see a view from, all those sort of things. So I took this photo on the drone, which is brilliant. It's got to be said. And then, if you've got the plan view of it, it's not exactly a plan. There's a little bit of perspective going on here. And then I turned it into black and white, and then went high contrast so you can really pick out areas of hard paving and where the trees are and things. This is A3, and then I'm just laying a bit of tracing paper over the top. Now you can use Google Earth. Google Earth's really good. In fact, it's got a measuring tool on there, which is really useful. So there's lots of different ways to go. First of all, I'm going to mark out here. This is the footprint of the house here, just so we can see it. And this isn't to scale, but I will be drawing the whole thing up to scale. I just drew over my car there, gave it a bit of a paint job, much needed. And then we've got this boundary, which is a lovely beech hedge running through here, which is definitely going to stay, of course. And it goes the other side. Then we've got some car parking here, which is currently very muddy indeed. And then we've got the boundary roughly to the field, and then the road comes down through here, and then it sort of joins up roughly like that. Now this is the greenhouse and the potting shed, and there's a couple of larger sheds and storage and stuff. So I'm going to call this the amenity area. I am going to design it and green it all up over time, as part of the lifetime plan. But at the moment, I'm not going to get into this area. So I'm going to start. We start here. because you might see this is the path. Okay, this bit right here is the existing garden path up to the kitchen diner, which is in here, and it's been taken. The line has been taken off the line of the hedge, and for me that doesn't work because when you're sitting in here, you always sit slightly twisted, and it's yeah, I can see why it was done that way, but at the same time I want to change it. Also, it's a very narrow path and it's low compared to the planting around it. So when it's wet, it's just it's pretty unusable. You end up coming out of the car here, getting loads of mud, and then almost washing the mud off by the time you end up pretty soaked. So what I want to do here is just draw a line, pretty much square, to the center of these doors, and this is could be a very A to B path, which would be a bit dull. I always like a little bit of movement in my paths, so I'm just going to sort of snake, not too wiggly, but just snake something through. But at the same time, you want to be able to walk directly, which means you need to create a generous sort of, that's what I want to do, a sort of wide, generous path that will take all of this in, but at the same time have some movement to it, so that the planting on either side flows rather than it feeling too symmetrical, too formal. I want it to be very loose. So that's got to go in because that is just a practicality. But it can also be a beautiful path. Reuse some of the stone here, add to it with some pavers, get some detail in there. Not worrying about that for the moment. The second big decision is where to sit in this garden. Now, around the garden, I'm going to have, seats and areas in shade and under trees and everything, very informal, but we do want somewhere where we all sort of sit together. The obvious place is somewhere around the house, but as soon as you put tables and chairs and things and people, oh yeah, they clutter it up a little bit and they block views. And I've noticed by living here, there's a really lovely view out of this window that I want to open up to the fields beyond. There's a lovely view here from the living room, so I don't want to clutter that up too much. But then I don't want to be too far away from the kitchen either. So for me, this feels like a really nice place to put a seating area. And I've sort of just gone elliptical there at the moment, really just to get away from too much formality because I want to loosen this whole garden up. Then you're going to get halfway down this path, and you might want to get to the seating area. So there will be a simple path running through there. And I'm not thinking about materials too much. That's budget driven. Do I want to relay the paving here, or do I want to go with a gravelly aggregate material? I'll go with a mix, because visually that'll work, but also gravels are a lot cheaper than paving and stuff like that. Then at the moment, you can see here, again, we've got this squared paving to the house, and then a sort of, it's meant to be square, I think, that path, but it isn't. And these are really useful, these ways through to the main garden. But this all relates back to the house, where for me, I want to relate to the views beyond and the landscape beyond. So I want to loosen this up immediately. I want to try and get a curve into here. So I'm sort of thinking that this could be a simple curve coming around here, and then we need to have sort of a paved pathway through to here, and then this will be paved, and then there's lots of planting. Now, this axis of this path is across as you walk through it, because that slows you down and it works really well. If it was all laid directing towards where you're heading, it speeds it all up and actually, rushes you through. Whereas I'm in no rush at all. This is my country garden. I want to slow down. I want to be able to take in that walk to the house. But this way, I've changed the axis because I want to work with the landscape that's happening out there. And so I don't want everything pointing in that direction, which leads me on to how the garden is currently laid out. And you might be able to see that we've got the woodland, which I'm not going to touch at all. It's absolutely beautiful. But here we've got a line of railway sleepers. we've got this lawn which was once a tennis court, I think, and then it was a croquet lawn, and now it has got stripes of wildflowers in, which are brilliant, including some orchids. So I want to try and keep that, but change the shape of it. Through here, we've got some trees and shrubs, and then through here there is a privet hedge, which is separating out the vegetable garden. But the axis is very much this way, and I want to make it more flowing this way. So when you look this way, it cuts across the view rather than sort of directing the view, and that is really simple to do. I'm just gonna change pens here because you can see where we've got these woodland trees. You know, I've got oaks and limes, and there's a big beech there as well. It's fantastic. I'm gonna keep all of these, and here I'm going to leave some of them in. You know, I'm going to leave some of them in, but I'm also going to add some here to balance it out. So what that does, here we've got a beautiful magnolia. This is more of an orchard area, and I'm going to thin these out a little bit to create the views through there and leave some on the boundaries. But that immediately gives me scope to try and get some flow into the garden. So I'm thinking if I can get some flow going laterally across it, that would work really nicely. So I'm looking at, you know, maybe planting up here, planting up here, planting through there, planting through there. You know, big brush strokes here because it's a large garden, looking at perennials and grasses and more shrubs. And then I've broken away from that line, and I've got these lines that are going to work with the hills, with the view beyond. And when I'm looking from here, there's no straight lines at all. And then it's just a case of mowing these paths. You know, you just mow these paths right into the woodland, or you leave them long where necessary. And then the planting around here, I'm thinking around the seating area of creating some sort of screen, some sort of backdrop, getting some trees in here, not too formal. You know, I could just 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 dot them through there, but just not me really, and I don't think that's going to work here so well. But also I want to think about some structure, and I've already started thinking about maybe some organic topiary shapes, that are just really clipped simply, but very organic and ever changing, and they will just be sort of creatively dropped in there or worked out on site. They might even break into this area a little bit more, rather than sort of, you know, topiarized squirrels or birds or something. So that will add a nice bit of structure here, and again work with that view beyond. And that is pretty much it as far as sort of the grand plan is concerned. I want to get as much planting into these areas as well around the house, soften the house. There's some lovely climbers up there already. Get some planting into these areas and just leave, you know, if I need a way through, I'll just leave a little gap there, leave a little gap there. You can get through there. Lots of roots to go through and around the garden and really experience it. And obviously, what a lovely place to garden as well. So that looks a bit of a mess, I'll agree, but that is what I'm currently thinking.